If you're a big tennis fan, or even if you're just a big sports fan, or frankly, a big social media user, you probably know there are only two options for the direction of the start of today's show. You had this incredible championship showdown between Alcaraz and Sinner on the red dirt of Roland Garros, I think. And you knew certainly, if you were following that, if you know us and if you know Nate Taylor, you knew two paths today's show could take. One, Nate Taylor is an overjoyed tennis enthusiast who is going to take the bulk of this edition of Only Weird Games and make it about this beautiful sport that he loves so much that Seth and I are generally pretty neutral on. Or door number two, while watching that match and Alcaraz's incredible comeback, Nate Taylor burst into stardust, nothing but light and atoms, and then descended into the heavens. Whoops. I hope he ascended into the heavens and not descended into anything else. Burst into light particles, shot into the sky, and long story short, Nate will be back in a couple of shows. Apparently, it takes a little while to pull a U-turn up there. It's Only Weird Games, only 2/3 as weird as usual. Joshua Brisco and Seth Keysor with you. Nate Taylor is getting a little family time, a little vacay time over the next week or so. So we will be making this a two-man weave for a little while. He didn't have to have another baby to get this chunk of time off, though, Seth, which I think was probably for the best. Is that why you had so many kids? It was the only way you could find vacation?
I actually never took time off after I had kids. It would have been wonderful to be in a position to do that. We just never quite were.
Which doesn't need to be, Seth, I was actually going to start this section of the show by offering you a chance to read into someone else's psyche. But now I'm afraid the bitterness that I just clocked in your voice right there, maybe this show really is falling apart.
No, there's no bitterness there. I think I just look bitter because the rings under my eyes are becoming more and more noticeable with each passing day. But I'm not bitter, Josh. I'm just old.
An easy mistake for me to make. You understand this.
I would have loved to have taken some time off. I don't know if Jazz would have loved it. Jazz loves
when you leave the house and go to work.
My wife is extremely in love with me. I'm comfortable saying that. I'm also comfortable saying she really, really, really likes the idea of me.
And I'll tell you what, Jazz and I have more and more in common every day.
Yeah, no, it's freakish, really. And she tends to enjoy having me around until she doesn't. And so that's I think she's always been fine with me going back to work as long as I'm willing to do my fair share when I come home, as all husbands should. Now, what is my fair share? I mean,
I just want to read you a tweet.
I take off my own shoes,
God.
And when she brings me my Sprecher root beer, I open it myself. So that's me carrying my weight.
Everybody knows, just real quick, I'm just going to, Seth, you just pause yourself. You just stay right there, just freeze in your frame. Let me save by the bell here. Like, let me do something to pull the reins and freeze the world. Dear audience, dear voyeurs, viewers, listeners, watchers, however you consume this show, it's important to me that you know that I try to help him. I don't push him down the my wife is so whatever that blah 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 blah. I don't even egg him on anymore. He just does this and I try to help. Maybe it's because I have so much sympathy, truly empathy for Jazz, because so much of our life seems to have taken so many of the same unfortunate turns that have led us to being irrevocably tied to Seth. But I don't know. Maybe that's where it's all coming. I just want you to know that I'm not doing this to Seth. Seth is doing this to Seth. And action.
Yeah. So I will even at times, gesture in the general direction of dinner in order for her to bring it my way.
Well,
That
it
requires the
would be
lifting of my regal hand.
you spend so
And
much of your day forming such incredible literary arguments, or I guess not literary, but so many incredible highfalutin arguments to leave
yes,
the judges
well,
and opposing lawyers of your state flabbergasted. So when you
indeed.
come home, what could you be expected to do other than grunt and wave your hand?
I don't think it's inaccurate to say that at times I've left judges and opposing counsel flabbergasted, but I'm not sure if it was ever for the reasons that I was hoping.
Yeah, you
Um,
just gotta take the flabbergasting where you can get it.
and
Uh,
yeah. It's
since we are Nateless today, Seth, you'd say that you and I and Nate, that we're all good close friends who have a true abiding friendship that stretches beyond the professional, right?
that's something I say to people, yes.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. And I feel like a lot of people had been saying that about Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. You know, they played together in Green Bay for a very long time.
Sure.
Obviously, Adams goes and connects very briefly with Derek Carr and then ends up back with Aaron Rodgers in New York. It seems like something had to be keeping them together. Now, with that in mind, how do you think you would feel? How do you think the audience might feel if instead of in the cold open, I talked about Nate enjoying tennis and being on vacation? How would everybody feel if I said, "Welcome to Only Weird Games. I'm Joshua Brisco. That's Seth Keysor. Quote, everybody's in a good mood. It's not like a dark cloud over the building, and I've experienced that quite a bit over the last few years, so it's a glaring difference when you come into a building like this." That was Devontae Adams saying he feels, quote, rejuvenated this offseason in LA, the quote courtesy of Sarah Barshop of ESPN. Everybody's in a good mood. It's not like a dark cloud over the building. Meanwhile, there's tornadic activity in Pittsburgh at the moment. I just thought that quote was fascinating because that doesn't reflect incredibly friendly on your longtime quarterback compatriot.
I wonder if he's talking about the Raiders too. I mean, he said the last couple of years, right?
Few years. I mean, it definitely reaches to the Raider,
Right.
way. The Raider.
I'd be curious. The only thing for me is it would surprise me to see Adams intentionally throw Rodgers under the bus. Generally speaking,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him throw any number of other people under the bus, like entire organizations.
I'm
Like,
guessing that was the gist of it, that it was like, hey, it's not that Aaron's not here. It's that the Jets have a dark cloud over the building, which is a metric of scientific facts.
It is one of those things like where you'd want to be like, and their quarterback is
right.
Like,
that's the thing, right?
Yeah. It'd be like if I were to like be like, just, the problem with my household is that there's a dark cloud that hangs over it. The attitudes are terrible, and like, you just go on and on, right? And someone's like, okay, who's the husband and father in that household? They'd be like, well, I'm not sure what you're getting at. It's like, oh yeah, this relationship is such a struggle. Like, who's one half of that relationship? That's very different. That's very different.
Huge news for fans of Loving Confines. Did you see Aaron Rodgers did confirm today that he is married?
Oh, well, congratulations to him.
Do you want to ask the obvious follow-up question? To whom? To who would be mine?
I am curious, yes.
No idea.
Oh.
Don't think anybody knows.
I can actually understand.
He's just such a private person. Maybe she'll have a segment on McAfee.
In some ways, it's so fascinating to me how people want to segment things out. I personally, I've only heard here and there. I mean, we know that I don't. I'm
sorry. Time out. I thought I'd do a Google just to check. USAtoday.com. It's been a couple months, Rodgers said after telling reporters he was, in fact, wearing a wedding ring. Rodgers did not provide any additional information about whom he had married. He previously indicated during an April appearance on the Pat McAfee show that he was, quote, in a serious relationship.
Yeah. It's always an interesting thing. Fame to me seems like a very interesting thing. My, kids love to ask hypothetical questions, and one of them is whether you'd rather be rich or famous. And I'm always like, I would not only rather be rich than famous, I actively would not want to be famous. I just can't imagine people wanting to know things about me to that extent. But then, then you go and you make appearances on certain shows. It's tough to be out of the public eye and control narratives. You
Yeah.
can't have both. And really, you can't have the second one regardless.
Right.
A lot of people like to try to control the narratives surrounding them. And honestly, I don't know. I think there's an interesting discussion to be had who really controls narratives. Honestly, it seems like it's something that just kind of spins on its own.
Yeah.
And usually when one group of people hear news, they react a certain way. Another group of people hear news, they react a certain way. And it almost seems like there's just really no controlling it. So I wish him the best in attempting to control that, which he cannot, failing to accept that, which he cannot, and also appearing to be incapable of telling the difference.
I hope he plays fun football this year. Do you know how much I think that would be more fun than him being bad. I think I would rather just see him look kind of like Aaron Rodgers for a handful of games, drag Mike Tomlin's Steelers over the 500 mark that I'm sure Mike Tomlin needs a real quarterback to help him do, and keep it moving.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Content.
It will be, and I also the whole Rodgers saga would have interested me more had he played better last year. And he wasn't bad at all, which will be an improvement over in the Steelers quarterback room. Being not bad will be an improvement. It's kind of like when Wilson, for a while, he wasn't bad. I just I don't know. It just doesn't interest me the way it would have interested me, 3 years ago or 2 years ago when he was still Aaron Rodgers.
The initial landing with the Jets was kind of the time for it to be this swirling intrigue, and we've had a lot of intrigue and not a whole lot of terribly memorable football, but that's neither here nor there. I just thought that quote from Davante Adams was kind of funny, and it's also nice to be talking about this franchise that is a team that knows what it's like to have a dark cloud over the franchise for a decade at a time.
Yes.
And I guess not quite. It felt every bit of a decade. And now things are good again, and we can talk about some of the things that are good. We talked about the safeties a couple of shows ago. We talked about Jaden Hicks in quite a bit of depth last week, but now Seth's article about Jaden Hicks, the film review looking back at his 2024 season to project a little bit of what's going to be on the table in 2025, that is available now in the Chief in the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com. You can check that out there. Also, over the course of the show or near the end of the show today, if we've got some time, we'll take a couple of questions from the chat. If you've got anything that you're interested in getting us to sound off on today, we'll continue to do this, I think, through, let's just say, most of June, probably. We'll take some time at the end of the show to try to pick a couple of questions. And if you got some interesting ones, throw them in there now. We're going to save them for later, and we'll hit a few at the end.
And one pro tip that I saw once, I have no idea if this still applies. If you put question marks before and after your question, that might make it easier for Tucker to pick out. I don't think we're moving we don't move so fast in the live chat.
Not in June.
Not in June. But it would be interesting. Our first one is more of an observation. This isn't a question at all, and Brett doesn't know I was going to do this. Brett said Seth is a participant in a podcast seemingly solely devoted to taking clips of him talking about his personal life and spinning comical narratives. That's a great observation. And also, Brett, are you an AI? Because that was yeah, you're not wrong, Brett. You're not wrong.
No, if we had a cash prize to give out to someone for accurately summarizing this show, I think Brett would win it, or Pazlou would win it, who just responded to Brett and said, that's not fair. Occasionally, this is a podcast where Seth snacks.
At times, yes. I think I got a burger waiting for me, so no snacks today. Plus, there's just the two of us.
That would be worse for sure.
It would be a much worse listening experience. But yeah, I'm excited to answer questions.
We're talking about the safeties first, so stop listening to the show.
Yeah. I always love, one of my favorite things is taking questions from people. I just get a kick out of it. You just never know what people might ask.
I'm gonna miss a couple shows this month. You guys, you can just. I'll tell you what. Nate and I are gonna trade off days that we're not gonna be here. I believe,
We could do a
but
mailbag.
that's what I'm saying. Let's just Tucker. Go ahead and put this down. Let's just plan on taking a Seth solo show somewhere this off season, and we'll just give Seth the full screen and make him do a live mailbag. That'd be great. You'd have a blast.
I used to when
Think of how much scripture you could cite if it was just you for an hour.
So much. Everyone would be so edified. When I used to do the Chief of the North podcast, shout out SB Nation, Arrowhead Pride. We would do like a mailbag episode, and people seem to enjoy it. Like,
people listen to that.
They did. I never cease being amazed. I keep waiting for like that moment to happen where everyone collectively is like, no, I don't want to know what you think about this. Stephen Holman with a great question. Did Jazz make the burger? She did not. My 17-year-old son is actually grilling him up. Well, not grilling him up. He's actually got him on the pan there. But yeah, so he's become our burger maestro. Anytime Jazz tries to make burgers, Mason just criticizes her. And so she's gotten annoyed with him. She's like, you make the burgers. But yes, the safety room. Can I lead with something on that?
I mean, why would I believe that you care what I think at all?
You know, I feel like I've got like a track record of like a third of the time I listen to you.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah.
And so like I would have gone to the Baseball Hall of Fame in listening to Josh Brisco. Like,
yeah.
Now,
which is different than the radio Hall of Fame or the spoken word Hall of Fame or the podcast Hall of Fame.
Shooting percentage, completion percentage, taking attack, basically any other field. But dang it, baseball, I'd be crushing it.
You are batting 1,000 at completing anecdotes about your wife and family in general. So that, you're maybe the GOAT at that.
Even if we don't finish it on the show, I just tell Jazz afterward what I would have said. So it's always, hun, I didn't get a chance to, tell them this, but I was going to say this. And she's always like, that's great, hun. She's a wonderfully, wonderfully patient woman. I am more excited. So when we talked about Jaden Hicks last week,
I thought for sure I was going to ask you the first question about the safety thing. No, that's okay.
I'll let you do it. But I just wanted to say, I'm actually more excited about Jaden Hicks now than I was Thursday after finalizing. I had still I went through probably another 100, 150 snaps. And sorry, I don't know. It's always disconcerting to me when
spit it out.
I'm more excited now after watching more snaps. There we go.
Hey, Seth, you've got the Chief of the North newsletter right now, has a new piece, the film review on Jaden Hicks. We talked about him on Thursday's show, but you weren't completely done with the charting and the writing by then. Anything changed for you since finishing that piece and publishing it on the Chief of the North newsletter, where you can read it for just $12 a year?
Nope.
Didn't think there would be. Let's take a break.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Folks, it's playoff time, and if you're still just watching the games, then you're missing out. With Pick 6 from DraftKings, you can turn your hoops knowledge into real cash. Just make your picks, track your score, and if you hit all 6, you're looking at bigger payouts than Prize Picks flex plays. Nobody's dropping better payouts than Pick 6. Hit 6 picks, and that's 25 times your cash. And if you beat your competition, you could be looking at a 500 times bag in your pocket. And right now, new customers can get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry. Here's what you got to do. The playoffs are on, so why not take a shot at making a little money while you're watching? Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN to play $5 and get $50 in bonus picks. Better payouts, bigger wins, only on Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdictions. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Just for the sake of the audio only listeners, it's worth the check out to see Tucker's new ad read there. He did the disclaimer. I can only explain as the Riddler from the most recent Batman movie. He looks like the Riddler from Robert Pattinson's The Batman, played by Paul Dano, right?
I don't know.
That's what Tucker looked like for the disclaimer. Have you seen the new Batman? I mean, the newest Batman?
I did, yeah. I watched it on a flight, I think. Yeah, it was pretty solid.
I enjoyed it. Paul Dano's excellent.
Oh.
Tucker looked like the Riddler met the Rizzler is what.
Yes.
That's Tucker's character at the
with
end
somehow
of the
more with somehow more mystery and Riz.
Yes, it's unbelievable, but it's a talent that only Tucker truly holds.
I never thought that you, myself, and Nate, but especially you and Nate, would ever be bested in ad reads.
Yeah.
Until I saw Tucker take this visual medium and turn it into art. It's
a great point, and Tucker deserves his flowers there. I will just say, let's see Tucker do it for ED medication. I'm saying degree of difficulty. He's playing against plumbers and carpenters out there.
I heard Tucker scream bet at his monitor just now. I could hear it. Like that guy.
I've got some ideas.
Oh man, I can't even imagine. We're gonna see a preview of that. So Tucker, that's the challenge with your next read.
I don't think it's really a challenge. I do think, to your point, I think he'll nail it.
Well, I think what he understands is the way he does ad reads by itself is probably a cure for. You know what? Let's move on.
I was gonna say it's harder than you think.
That was an easier one. Dang it. It's right there in front of me. Your worst trait is
the thing about the Chiefs safety group. We talked about these last 2 shows, and Jaden Hicks, we are double stamping and underlining and highlighting. We're in on Jaden Hicks. The short takeaway from much of the article and much of last week's show was there's less projection than you think with Jaden Hicks. It's more about him doing things he was already doing at a pretty high level last year. That's great news. Something I wanted to ask you last week that I think we ran out of runway on.
Yep.
When you say, and this is also in the story, and here's another disclaimer on the disclaimer. I promise eventually we'll start the show, guys, any minute now.
What is this, me telling this story?
It's what it feels like. In the offseason, I want to take a little time to maybe circle back on some football 101 and 201 kind of things when we're going through and talking about like the intricacies of different types of safeties. I know a lot of longtime Weird Games listeners may not need that distinction. We've also picked up, against all odds, we've picked up some new listeners as of late that maybe haven't spent an entire offseason with us where we can get into some of these things.
Sure.
So the thing I wanted to kick off back into the rest of the safety group, and you can obviously include as much of Jaden Hicks in this as you want, but in the story, you note that he's not the guy you want being your single high safety, but that he can be back there in cover 2 and cover 3, and obviously does a lot of stuff in the box. And you went through this on Thursday, played a lot of roles for this team, even last year as a rookie.
Yep.
The thing I'm curious about, that I think might be able to clarify these terms for some people, what is it that makes Jaden Hicks a great fit at almost everything, but not the single high safety that you want? And then secondarily, who is the Chiefs' best candidate for a somewhat prototypical single high safety on this roster right now?
Sure. The easiest thing to think of is in terms of covering space, right? Think like a center fielder in baseball. Okay. You've got the most ground to cover when you've got the most grass with no one else there. And if you're a single high safety, or if you're a safety playing, and this is a little bit different, but it's kind of a similar concept at times. If you are playing center field in cover 3, you just have more to cover. It's pretty simple. You've got split field coverage, which you split the field in half. Sometimes it's called middle field open because the middle of the field is open, right? And so that's where you've just got, a safety right here and a safety right here. You have 2 safeties. And because of that, I've got my half of the field, you've got your half of the field. And we all intuitively know that half is smaller than full.
Right.
And so the idea there being is you need to cover less ground. You are responsible for less ground, similar to a right fielder or a left fielder, depending on, I know the shift has changed so much, even in the outfield. I don't know a ton about it. But I mean, let's just assume everyone's lined up where they normally would be. Your center fielder has the most ground to cover.
And is your best athlete, is your fastest of your outfielders, all of these things. I know this is someone who was placed in right field as a child.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of stride speed at the time.
You needed to build it up.
More power than speed.
So think of it this way, in terms of your free safeties. Now, the guys I'm going to name, I could do anything, right?
Yeah.
But like Ed Reed, free safety, single high safety. Troy Polamalu, box safety, strong safety. Now, could Troy Polamalu?
He's the worst for this game because what was he not doing?
Yeah, that's
level?
true. But he was not your full-time guy. And easier. So in Chiefs, recent history, like Ron Parker, he was a single high guy. He could play over the top. Kendrick Lewis, no, he was more of a cover 2 type guy. Eric Berry's a bad example too because he could do anything.
Boxes. Right, he's too good to be this specifically narrow.
Yeah, what you're really looking for with a guy who can play true center field at safety is a guy with high level top end speed and high level acceleration. Okay, that is someone who he can get. So Juan Thornhill's a good example of this. He was able to play true single high because sometimes you need to be able to make it from the middle of the field to the boundary.
Right.
Whereas if you're playing too high or cover 2 or whatever, right, or even quarters where, you are trying to make it, you're shaded to one side of the field to make it to the boundary. And that 1/10 of a second is everything in the NFL. 1/10 of a second slower is the difference between a guy who can play single high sometimes in a pinch, but isn't a guy you want back there consistently. One of the reasons the Legion of Boom worked, they just played a ton of cover 3. For one thing, after it became a thing, they were allowed to just maul guys down the field in a way that you really couldn't get away with now. But the other thing was Earl Thomas had more range and better instincts than most safeties that have ever lived. And that's another reason the Ravens could do whatever they wanted in coverage when Ed Reed was their safety, because he was everywhere. He could come all the way from center field and pick you off. So there's this combination of long speed, and someone's mentioning Brian Cook, and there's actually not a terrible observation there regarding him. Long speed and acceleration, but also you want some instincts there because you got to have a guy there that understands how to read the quarterback, but isn't addicted to it because he doesn't let anything get behind him. And that's where the one guy they really have on the roster that seems to have the physical tool set would be Brian Cook. And even he's not like a pure safety, but he's got the acceleration. He's got the long speed, but he gets caught peeking too often. And that's where he ends up just a half foot. He ends up, a half step off. He's moving the wrong direction for a moment, and he doesn't have that elite nutso recovery speed that like an Ed Reed would have. So that's why Jaden Hicks has better speed than I thought, has pretty decent acceleration, not great acceleration, but he's got good long speed. Eventually, once he revs up, he is like a 4.5 40 type guy. That's not great, but it's not terrible for a safety. That's just a tough guy to put in center field over and over. You're probably better off as part of too high.
And then this is sort of more general schematic, and I don't think you've got the like splits on this right now. I don't have the splits on this right now. But which of those types of safeties does Steve Spagnuolo prefer? Why is it? Let me ask it differently because I know the answer to that question. Why is it that Tyrann Mathieu and Justin Reed were the safeties that preceded Jaden Hicks in these really huge roles? How often are the Chiefs running a single high safety out there, even before you're talking about the rotations and all the pre-snap, everything? I also, we talked about Brian Cook a week or two ago. I still put him, and this is a me thing, I think. I still think of some of those college highlights of him arriving and being the deliverer of contact and go, man, that, physical thumping kind of safety. I don't think I give him enough credit for the speed that he can show. I also don't feel like the Chiefs love putting him as the single high in this defense, but I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe I'm off base.
Generally speaking, what Spags prefers is versatility. And because he likes being able to line up his defensive backs everywhere, right? He likes, with safeties, he loves playing them all over. I did the whole list thing with Hicks on Thursday to all the places he played. Justin Reed played all over. Cook plays all over. He loves doing that. They tried Shamari Connor in the slot because they were desperate. Like, they love playing guys all over. He prefers versatility. Like Tyrann Mathieu, before he lost a tenth of a second in his speed overall because he had a bad leg injury and he was never quite as still a great player, great player, but not as dynamic as he was like in college. You'd watch him, it's like, holy crap. Like, I mean, just he was faster than everyone else on the field all the time. You lose that a little bit. So he prefers guys with versatility. The problem with versatility, not the problem, but it's kind of similar to like when we talk about pass rushers. When we talk about George Karlaftis, he's got power, he's got athleticism, he's got a little bit of an array of pass rush moves, got a great motor, but he doesn't really have bend, right? He's got the size, the length, what you want, but he doesn't really have bend. It's like, oh, well, why do they grab a guy with bend? Well, because if you want to grab a guy with bend that has all those other things that get drafted in the top 5. Right. Like that's how that works.
The last time the Chiefs had the safety equivalent of a chance to get that guy, they did. His name was Eric Berry.
Correct. Right. So like guys like Eric Berry or Kyle Hamilton, those guys get drafted in the top 15. Guys that can truly play free safety and truly play strong safety and truly play, because some guys that play free safety, they're not necessarily like Ron Parker couldn't play in the box particularly well. He wasn't a great tackler. Underrated player, had a couple of really good years. Hey, by the way, anytime I see his name, Nate Dogg said we could use a Hussein Abdullah.
I was just about to say Hussein Abdullah. No one said his name in a minute. We need to say his name.
He was a terrific safety for Spag's system. He had just enough speed to be a free safety on the back end. Maybe he had a little more speed than Hicks. Maybe still not exactly who you want. Like Thornhill is a good one to keep in mind. I liked what he did on the back end. Especially pre-injury. So
and even Thornhill's you're talking pre-injury, and he was another one of those guys who you talked about seeming faster at the pro level. Like his speed didn't really show up that way in college. I find that fascinating. I know you're also, I'm dragging you into a tangent as well, but like Hicks looking faster at the pro level, Thornhill looking faster at the pro level. I don't know if Cook was one of those guys pre-injury for him as well, but at least doing some different things in this defense than he did at the college level. That it's hard for me not to want to make that a little credit to Spags and Merritt and just say that's got to be coaching. It's slowing the game down or whatever it is.
There's got to be something there to it, especially because it's not like Spags doesn't ask for much from those guys,
right? Yeah, no kidding.
Must be coaching it up extremely well.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with trying to find a pure free safety who's also got versatility to him is tough. I think Cook was a good shot at that. And we'll see how Cook does this year. He wasn't great as the single high type guy last year. He does have the skill set for it. So that'll be interesting to see. But with Spags, he generally speaking, it just seems like at least he doesn't favor guys who are a one role type guy, even if it's a valuable role. And that's one thing is like if you've got a guy who is more of just a pure single high type, but he's not as strong a tackler, he's not as strong or whatever. Well, now when you move to too high, you've made yourself worse against the run. He's a guy that teams know, like Spags loves to do a ton of rotations, right? Everyone knows that, all those disguises. Well, part of what comes with those disguises is you need to have the quarterback legitimately believe that this guy could line up anywhere. Like there was a snap where Jaden Hicks lined up like he was going to blitz the A gap and then sprinted up the seam. I mean, like you need to be able to be a legitimate threat. Ron Parker lining up at the A gap, they're like, that guy's not blitzing.
Right. We'll run it if he comes. That's okay.
Yep. Yeah. We'll run. Yeah. We'll run right at that gap. Jaden Hicks, you can't do that. Justin Reed, you can't do that. So it's hard to find both. And honestly, in the modern NFL, with so many shell type coverages being played, that freak show, variant single high guy, you aren't just gonna. There's not as much of a need for them now. When you have
there
one,
also aren't as many of them, right? Like chicken or
Right.
egg here. What came first? Defenses realized they're not. The Ed Reed factory has shut down. They made one and said that was all.
And
you don't
that's
have
correct.
guys like that, so you adjust. You go, all right, we'll put a couple of guys back there and tell them to keep everything in front of them, I guess.
Right. And to answer your other question, Spags doesn't run a lot of single high.
Right.
He'll run single high, like people might say, like, well, I see it all the time. No, you see it on blitzes. That's a different game. Single high coverage, when they are blitzing all out, you're not being asked to really cover the whole field. You're being asked to pick up a guy that gets by,
right?
Because the blitz didn't get home on time. Because that's a do or die type situation. Hicks can be that guy. Justin Reed can be that guy. Brian Cook can be that guy. The Chamari Connor probably has better burst than Hicks. I don't think he has good at long speed for what it's worth. Hicks is kind of a strider, and you can see that 6'1", 6'2" frame when he gets going. So they don't really need a guy like that. It's just really noticeable on the snaps when they lose out on that. But they play a ton of two deep, and they play a ton, all those rotations. I just think you need guys that can do it all. And that's why he prefers a Tyrann Mathieu who can line up anywhere. Tyrann Mathieu is probably, you put Tyrann Mathieu's, everything he did in coverage, and you combine it with Justin Reed as a tackler, and you probably have Spags' perfect safety, or Eric Berry.
Right. Yeah, I guess. And Spags probably could have figured out what to do with Troy Polamalu. But it's we're playing in the Mr. Potato Head world where you add Justin Reed tackling to Tyrann Mathieu in coverage, and it really, I don't know, this might just be now like just taking a moment to enjoy the fun football things that are happening. You teased this on Thursday, but the Jaden Hicks clips and even some of the ones that didn't make the story that you put out on socials, it's such a fun type of football. And maybe I was spoiled by, in many ways, being introduced to some of the best of defensive football by Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed and Eric Berry, locally, of course, like being hugely, hugely impactful. But some of the most iconic snapshots of that era of football involved those guys who were doing everything at incredibly high levels. I enjoy this version of it more, I think, where you do get those crazy rotations, where you do have guys in places that you're not expecting because the quarterback isn't expecting it either. That's why they're in a surprising position. And even as someone who will now and forever be, if Marcus Peters has one fan, I am that fan. Even as the standard bearer for the Marcus Peters fan club, I do love watching a defensive back lay a hit. There's not much like it, because linebackers never get to get up to speed in the way that a defensive back gets to. When a linebacker delivers that kind of hit, it's not at velocity usually, and it's not surprising usually. Right. You give me an opportunity for one of these defensive backs to make the kind of play that has you just release a guttural, ooh, yeah, that's some of the best of football. And the Chiefs have some guys who can do that, both at safety and amongst their corners. Yes. Let's talk about them a little bit, because we've been on the same page since the Christian Fulton signing of like, oh man, this to me might be the most exciting position group of 2025, at least compared to what happened in 2024. Mm-hmm. So much of last season ended up being about the shortcomings or the ups and downs, the comes and goes of Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson and Chris Roland Wallace and Chamari Connor. Now, the Chiefs have too many good, healthy corners at this moment. Now, health is never guaranteed. That's why we ended up where we were last year so much of that time. But Christian Fulton and And Trent McDuffie, I think, probably being obviously McDuffie's the top guy in this room and likely going to end up in the slot way more than he was last year. You give me that combo with what I am assuming is going to be a relatively pre-injury form of Jalen Watson, and I am downright like ready to go, ready to see this group in action. I don't know if there's much they can prove to me in training camp, because other than staying healthy, I suppose, and looking comfortable in the very early building blocks of the scheme. But this cornerback room is really, really fun, and being able to just not stress about safety feels like that's in good hands. Mike Edwards is back too to help keep that floor where it is.
A great signing. Great signing when you're
really
relying
excited.
on young guys. Just sorry to
No,
break it. Great signing. Mike Edwards is a good example too. Not really a single high guy. You can put him there every now and then, but a solid cover 2 coverage guy.
And it's all interconnected. Mike Edwards being back makes Trent McDuffie's life better. Not just because he got a safety that he knows is doing his job back there, but because it means you don't have to have Shamar Connor in the slot and McDuffie back outside and all of those connective parts. I just the closer we get, and even I don't know, I can't remember if we talked about this here or where it popped up. But like there was a little bit of talk of like Noel Williams having a little bit of a rough introduction in mini camps, and we're not even to the mandatory stuff next week.
Rasheed Rice was throwing up. I mean, these things happen.
There's no reason to overreact to any of that, but I do think, as I think we said this after the draft shows, like having no reason to rush Noel Williams into a starting spot, also a good thing. I'm really excited about this defensive backfield. I'm excited about the corner group. I'm excited about how the pieces fit.
Yeah. I've always thought, I mean, I know when they drafted Noel Williams, hey, they traded up for him. I like his film. His game in a lot of ways reminds me of the way Jalen Watson plays. Spags loves smart corners. He loves corners that tackle. He loves corners that are really comfortable in zone. He loves corners that are really comfortable being physical, not just at the line of scrimmage. And this is like, since we're, again, it's June, we can talk about this stuff. Physicality as a corner isn't just at the line of scrimmage. And I would argue probably isn't primarily at the line of scrimmage. It's throughout the route. And I know you're thinking, oh, Seth, they're not allowed to touch them. Well, they do, like a lot. Right. Like, and part of being a corner is understanding how to be in the path. Where is that route? Where's the stem of that route going to be? Where is he going to try to make his break? And can you be standing right in that spot to where he has to run into you and there's no penalty? And now you're all just, oh, this is terrible. Oh, he has the Bill Hader thing. Oh, that's terrible. You ran into me. I'm bummed. Like that, that's
not a lot of competition, but one of your better impressions, I think.
Yeah, I actually felt really good coming out.
I think there's some Fargo in there, so I think it comes naturally to you.
Yeah. Anytime I talk, there's some Fargo there. So that's something that Williams does well. My assumption has always been he has a shot at being the fourth corner. If he surpasses Watson, Watson's been a competent or better corner every year he's been in the league. If Williams is able to be better than that, that would be awesome. Like that would be really, really fun. Fulton has been a competent or better corner every year in the league. Well, at least the last couple of years. And I mean, and he's the type of guy who, again, plays the way Spags likes. Really comfortable against the run, really comfortable in zone looks, comfortable in man when you're pressing or when you're, and again, there's more physicality than that. You can be physical with a guy when you're playing 3 yards off the line, 3 to 5 yards off. You just got to hit him at the right time. And so they've got a bunch of guys they're comfortable doing that with. Moving McDuffie inside, it strengthens everything because McDuffie can do anything from the inside. He can play any coverage. He can defend anyone. He can also blitz. He is, I personally think it's between him and Kyle Hamilton as the best slot blitzers in the entire NFL. Because
he didn't get to do it last year.
Right. And the thing with like everyone says like, oh, well, you're faster as a corner, so it's easier. No, there's an art to that. Jaden Hicks was a pretty lousy blitzer last year, honestly. That's because he just tried to power straight through, and that's not going to work in the pros. These running backs are strong enough. They're not just going to let you run them over, usually. But McDuffie is able to corner. He's able to avoid blocks. He's such a gifted blitzer. He's so good at knocking passes down. The Chiefs arguably won a Super Bowl because of that. I mean, he's so good. And that, it just raised the ceiling for everything. If you think about how much the difference in the defense before Watson got injured, then during his injury, And then after, think of what a huge difference it made having 2 competent corners out there. Now imagine there's 3 competent corners out there. If the safety group, and I'm more confident in Hicks now, if the safety group does not take a significant step back, I could see that entire secondary being significantly stronger, because with corners or safeties, it's not just about having strengths. It's about avoiding weaknesses. We've talked about this before. And that's the problem is last year, they had a couple guys out there. And, Johnson had some good snaps too. I'm kind of tired of treating him like a punching bag. I mean, he was coming back from injury. We'll see how he does this year. The team, Merritt and Spags, have been excited about Najee Johnson for a while. If anyone's earned the benefit of the doubt about anything, it's Spags and Merritt about corners. So fair enough. We'll see how it goes. I think they know it didn't go well last year. That's why they're trying to keep him off the field at times. But that difference in not having a guy you can pick out to pick on, it just makes game planning so much tougher for opposing offenses. So I'm stoked to see how that looks, and I think it'll make the pass rush look better.
I really think that there might be 6 maybe defensive backs who fit that bill of like, these guys could all be on the field and you wouldn't know who to pick on. You might have your favorite matchup because of your own team's weapons or whatever, but man, it really is a delightfully fun group that I'm excited to see play football together. And it's one of the first times this offseason that I've been sad that it's June, because I really am like genuinely really looking forward to seeing how those pieces come together. Absolutely. We're not going to get a real look at it for quite a while.
Yep.
Seth, we have a few questions here that we can go ahead and make some time for. Don't read them. You don't need to click. You don't even need to worry about it. I'm going to read them because it'll be funnier if you're not reading. A couple of them are good football questions. A couple of them are others. And I'll say this, it's just me and Seth. The next, I think this show, next one, and next Tuesday, I believe, Nate will be back a week from this upcoming Thursday. So plenty of time for questions. If you're hearing this in podcast form and you think, I want to ask a question, come on through tomorrow, leave it in the chat, and Tucker will save a few, and we'll answer some near the end of the show again on Thursday. First one from Brett. Wait, Seth is married? It's true. I know.
I am actually coming up on 18 years here in November.
Look at that. That's so much time, considering you guys get married and I was gonna say you guys get married in your 40s. That's not what the joke I wanted to make, because that implicates Jazz. But if I say, well, what were you, 40? That also implicates you, and so I just don't get to make fun of that and just get to say congratulations, Seth, on a beautiful 18 years of marital bliss and all of the joys that come with it, and most importantly, all of the content that it has come with it that Jazz could not have possibly known when she said yes on that fateful day.
Yeah. Had she known, who knows what she might have done.
From Nate Dogg, Seth, I'm curious about this one too. Did you get Kiko spayed?
No. And here's why.
Because Jazz wants puppies. From Paz Lou. Oh, go ahead.
You know what? That's close enough to it. Here's what I'll let everyone know, because I do know there's a lot of animal lovers that are genuinely interested in this question for very good reasons.
Myself
and I 100% understand them. Jazz and I have made sure to refine. That was one reason we figured it was a false pregnancy with Kiko, by the way, because we were just like, there's no way that she could have. We're very cautious with that. She has her dog devotions every evening. There's no way. If there's well, no, we just, she, you know what? No.
Yeah, no, I almost didn't.
So,
yeah.
There's people, because we're in kind of a community where there's a lot of farmers, there's a lot of people that keep cattle and that kind of stuff. There is an interest in healers and Australian cattle dogs.
That makes sense.
And so there's people that have actually asked, because Kiko, you've met Kiko. She's a beautiful dog. It was weird.
I have not met Kiko.
Yeah. The night we had the bonfire. Yeah.
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. She got outshined a little bit by Milo, the friendly golden.
Both delightful. You're right.
Yeah. And so, she's a really pretty, really smart dog. It is a weird experience the first time someone comes up to you and is like, hey, I breed dogs and I saw your dog there. And I'm like, sir,
yeah,
I'm sure this is a perfectly legitimate thing you're doing.
Yeah.
It feels weird Like what you're asking me at its core
Yes.
is if I will bring my dog to your dog so your dog can.
Question here from Oscar Bobo says, we have one game of Kingsley at guard with backups versus a mauling D, but what have we seen of Kingsley at guard and what should we expect? I ask knowing that the answer is 80% quote, we'll have to see. I think you're considering taking a closer look at Kingsley this offseason.
Yes.
But where are you starting from there?
Right now, I'm actually working on. So I wrote that part 1 of low key Chiefs to the 2025 season, and I wrote about Jaden Hicks being an educated bet. I'm actually working in reverse. I'm going to do the list of guys I'm going to write about now, and kind of just do a quick blurb on why each of them is so important, and then I'm going to go over their film in future articles. And you're like, "Whoa, Seth, couldn't you just talk about why all of them are important in each article?" Well, you know what? Screw you. It's June, okay? So we're going to preview after I already wrote one. And it actually, what happened was I realized midway through writing about Jaden Hicks, it took me so long to write about why he's important that I was like, man, I could just be writing about his film right now.
Yeah,
so Kingsley Suamataia is my plan for the next guy. What I want to do is review more thoroughly his very limited snaps at guard. I will say this. In a game where everyone was embarrassing themselves, I don't think he embarrassed himself. And considering how badly things had gone, my concern for him was that he'd been broken in week 2. Right. I mean, you shatter someone's confidence like that, that can be tough. I want to take a look at the limited snaps he took in the middle of the season and then the ones he took late at guard. What I would say is, on first view, and I haven't charted him, so I need to chart them. On first view, he didn't embarrass himself. That is a great first step. He's got a great physical makeup for a tackle. He has an unbelievable 0.1 percentile build for a guard. You can start there.
That's a good place to start, given the option. And then last one for us here from Paz Lou. In the parallel universe where the Chiefs kept Tyreek but likely lost 95, that's Chris Jones, do they win more or fewer Super Bowls? And does Mahomes win more or less MVPs?
I think
those are probably inverted answers, right?
Yeah, they're inverted answers. That's a fantastic question, by the way.
Fun question, Paz. Thank
that
you.
Makes me want to do a whole episode of mailbags because so many of these are I actually used to do a series called What If. One was my favorite one of all time. Mike Maslowski doesn't get injured in 2003. The Chiefs win the Super Bowl. That is a stone cold fact, and I will not hear anything otherwise. Little before your time, Brisco, but that's okay.
The guy from Monsters, Inc.?
Maslowski.
Oh.
Mike Maslowski.
That's a joke. That's a joke for Rudy Salazar, who made the best version of that joke of all time. Mike Maslowski actually came to Maranatha one day and talked to our scrappy football team of 15. And
is he as intimidated in real life as he looked?
I don't remember.
Sure.
I remember that he showed up and I was probably pretty tired. It was the end of practice or something. Hey, I know him. And then I gasped for air and drank some water is my guess.
Nice.
I don't remember.
I think that part of the things that we've seen with the offense the last 2 years, not in 2022, but the last couple of years, I don't think you have those same things happen. Not all of them, at least. Some of them, but not all of them, because a guy like Tyreek Hill in a system that's built for him is really, there's just such an easy button there that really covers an abundance of sins elsewhere. So I think Mahomes, because remember he had the 2022. So when you say more MVPs, you realize he won it in 2022. So oh man, it's been 2 whole years since he won an MVP. I think he maybe does win one more with Tyreek Hill. I don't think they win 2 straight Super Bowls though. I think with Chris
you're not
Jones,
getting the return initially, which is McDuffie and Karlaftis was at the end of the first, so maybe, but it's McDuffie and some other pieces, and then I think shortly thereafter losing Jones as a free agent, probably.
Right. So you lose Jones as a free agent, so you don't get the same return, and even if you traded him, you weren't going to get the same return because he was 4 years older than Hill.
Older interior defensive lineman. It would have been a mistake by the rest of the league, but you would not have gotten that kind of return.
And 1,000,000%. And the Chiefs kind of caught lightning in a bottle to an extent in terms of the timing of their trade with Hill. I think if you traded Tyreek Hill today, I don't think you get the same, and not just Tyreek Hill as he currently is, right? He's a little older, all that stuff. I don't think you get the same return now as you would then. I think you maybe get close to the A.J. Brown return, but that Tyreek Hill return was crazy. You had a team that really thought that it had a Super Bowl window, had a very specific system that they knew he'd be great in, had a new aggressive coach that wanted to prove himself. There was a whole lot of things that went right there and for the Chiefs. And the league saw that didn't go particularly right for their team. Now, here's the flip side. For the Eagles, like the A.J. Brown trade does not get enough attention as one of the things that built their Super Bowl contending and then winning roster, because having A.J. Brown's a top 5 receiver and is an unbelievable X receiver, just an incredible weapon. So I don't think you get the same return. And here's the other thing. Chris Jones, and I actually have poked around writing about this, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a way that won't take forever. I'm sure AI will help. The number of drives, like information finding, I like AI for. Articles written by AI can kick rocks.
I'm not sure they can.
Yeah. This podcaster finds articles by AI distasteful and appears to believe that anyway. So Chris Jones is a drive ender. And people don't necessarily always believe in the idea of like clutch pass rushers. They don't seem to, at least. And in a lot of cases, I would agree with you, but I do think in some cases, I think we've just seen it time after time. Is it every time? No. Just like Michael Jordan didn't hit every game-winning shot, right? But time after time, we've seen Chris Jones make high leverage. He made big plays in high leverage moments. It's always him, right? You know, I mean, like you think about like, I don't know, the 2022 AFC Championship game. People forget the Bengals had the ball. Burrow had his chance for this epic whatever. They'd been to the Super Bowl the year before, and Chris Jones swallowed their right tackle whole. He knocked down pass after pass in the 2019 Super Bowl. And this is just like in the AFC Championship and Super Bowls. I mean, some of the pressures that he's caused. I wrote about their last Super Bowl win against the Niners. Some of the difference-making plays that he made besides that last pressure, it altered fundamentally the course of the game in a way that Spags' defense has relied upon. And I just don't think you win both years. I think you swap out the two of them. I think maybe you win it all in 22, but probably not 23.
All right, there's another alternate world, by the way, where they don't take the Dolphins package, but they take what would have essentially given them the opportunity to take the Garrett Wilson package, which is another butterfly of the butterfly effect. I think that was the report, right? That
yeah.
Sorry, Seth, I tried leaving a message in the group, in the private chat there, and I didn't get it all typed up, and I hit enter, and so I just bailed. It just says we. I was going to say just like we are such dogs that we can't help but still do an hour on June 10th, which is what's happening right now. That's what I was going to say to just you and Tucker, and then I just sent the words we, and it wasn't. I didn't get it all out in time, but it's still going to happen.
Right.
Like, even that is kind of interesting. Ooh, well, what if he ends up with this like young top 10 receiver? But the shine came off of Garrett Wilson a little bit with the aforementioned dark cloud of the New York Jets organization. Not necessarily their quarterback, but there's been a bit of a cloud there.
Yeah.
Some fascinating alternate timelines, even some where this show ends shortly before the 1 hour mark. We'll take more questions again on Thursday, and probably will not talk about the safeties on Thursday. So if you want to come by and drop off some questions, do that on Thursday. And
Sean Kurtz, renew that question about X receiver for Thursday.
I did like that one of saying, explain to us Chiefs fans what an X receiver is.
Oh, you're being funny, I think, actually.
But actually, I thought I took it as a good joke and also a good question, because the definition of an X receiver in Kansas City has often been a tight end, the greatest tight end of all time, I should say, and then some other guys. Like it's a weird way that's evolved. So I want to do more of that. We'll take more questions on Thursday and see where that all lands. In the meantime, Seth, just stall us for a good 30 seconds and then get us out of here once again, providing an hour of content for the Only Weird Games audience, where I would argue at least 40-ish minutes of it was very football adjacent.
I think so too. So here's the deal with the 2003 Kansas City Chiefs.
Please do explain this.
The offense remained unstoppable throughout the entire season, including the playoffs. Mike Maslowski, for those who don't know, he played the Mike. So think Nick Bolton's role in an era, and this is not shaded at anyone, in an era where Nick Bolton's role mattered even more because of the way the game was played. He was the brain of that defense. Those who don't remember, and I'm trying not to like throw anyone under the bus here, so I'll just say the defensive coordinator at the time isn't super fondly remembered by Chiefs fans, or based on a few conversations I've had here and there, people that maybe played under him, not because he was a bad guy, but because he really didn't call in great stuff. My understanding is there was a little bit of Maz getting guys where they got to be, regardless of the call. And if you look at the splits of the 2003 Chiefs defense before Maz was injured and after he was injured, it was the difference between an average to slightly below average defense to a horrible one. And I'm telling you, there's no way that an average defense with that 2003 offense doesn't win it all. There's no way they have a no punt game. And the only team they lost to, the only team that could have gone shot for shot with them on offense, the Peyton Manning at the height of his powers, Colts. And he got hurt. And so that is why Mike Maslowski could have been the key to the Chiefs win all in 2003.
Can't believe you threw Bob Sutton under the bus like that. Was that not him?
They would have been lucky to have